Throughout the course, we'll be using the scene I have loaded up in 3ds Max 2018, again courtesy of TurboSquid. This particular scene is composed of a few hundred objects and just over 1.8 million polygons, or roughly 3.5 million triangles. All the materials being used are V-Ray materials, which is a very popular renderer in architectural visualization, in case you didn't know that. The good news is that Unreal Studio, by way of the DataSmith exporter, fully supports V-Ray materials. The scene also uses several lights, including some V-Ray lights. So if we do a quick search here for V-Ray, we've got a V-Ray sunlight. The scene also uses some photometric lights that have IES profiles assigned to them. And the good news is that, once again, Unreal Studio supports these as well when we export them. You'll be able to use any similar architectural interior and easily be able to follow along. Let's look at a couple of things you'll want to look at, though, before proceeding. Your scene in the 3D tool should be set to the same world scale as Unreal Studio. In 3ds Max, that's easily done by going to Customize, Unit Setup, and then System Unit Setup. And we can see here that 1 unit equals 1 centimeter here. Unreal Studio's basic working unit is a centimeter. So if you're working in anything other than centimeters, you're going to need to do some conversions. Now, the best workflow is to work in centimeters from the beginning, but fear not, there are ways to convert your scene to match Unreal in most 3D packages. And we'll get into how to do that in a little more depth coming up. Also, you may notice that while the scene's assets do have good names for the most part, they could be a little better. We'll look at some basic naming conventions for each type of asset, including geometry, materials, and textures. Now, you may also notice in this particular scene, many of these assets are grouped together. So you can see here, when I selected one object back here, I'm basically getting all the objects that are on the countertop. This is fine, and Unreal will respect layers and grouping in 3ds Max. But you'll want to make sure that your assets are cohesive actors, such as a full table or a full teapot here. You don't want them to be constituent parts like the teapot handle and the teapot spout, because that is going to create kind of a mess in Unreal, because each of these parts will come in as separate assets. So while you can work that way, Unreal will import those assets. It's just better if you want to be able to move them around later to make sure that they are entire actors, not just their constituent parts. Grouping objects, however, is fine. What Unreal will do when we export these assets is each of these assets will be its own static mesh in the content folder that you can drag into the scene. But the ones that are already in the scene will be grouped as they are here in 3ds Max. So now that we've had a look at the course assets and what we're going to be working with, let's go ahead and get right into preparing these assets for export into Unreal Studio.